How's it going, guys? Hope you're doing well. Welcome to Scag Talk.
Here we go.
Topic I wanted to bring up today was the gay marriage vote in Australia. Now, I'm going to do a video partly addressing that, but not too much because I know I'll lead into homophobia in general and I want to do a separate video on that. And also partly because I don't want to give it that much credit. A vote for gay marriage is, I can't get my head around it. It's just ridiculous that they're putting that to a vote. In my last video, you may have seen part of it was cut out. That's because I was talking about this, so I thought I'd pop it into a separate video. But yeah, anyway guys, I'll be back to sum it all up at the end, but I hope you enjoy.
Here's an interesting one for you. There's a bloke in there who I've just worked with, stacking shelves and stuff. I spoke to him before a little bit, but he seemed just like your typical average guy, you know, a gay slur here, a bit of, you know, misogyny there, just that whole false masculinity thing to make them feel like any kind of emotion, anything that they do that's not sex related or seeming physically dominant, stuff like that. Anything that's not like that is frowned upon and will be insulted with a gay joke or something like that. But I've spent the shift with just him, and we've been speaking about all sorts. He's been speaking about this girl that he's seeing. He spoke to me about how he's been cheated on several times and how insecure he is and stuff. And throughout the whole time talking to him, bearing in mind this is a 9-hour shift, so for about 7 hours, he's used. I think I caught him for making one gay slur. I think he was saying something like, "Oh, as gay as it sounds," and I was just like, "It's all right. You don't need to say that. It's offensive, yeah, but it's not necessary. You know, you can tell me what you need to say. Like it's the whole idea in society that men aren't allowed to talk about stuff which doesn't present a masculine image, and that really pisses me off, because what it does is it stops people having an identity. It collectively groups them together to talk about sex, to talk about objectifying women, to talk about being physically strong, to talk about, you know, stuff like having a big dick or whatever the fuck that's about. Like, all the conversations are like, whenever we're having lunch, when they're all together, it's always that. But what it takes away your identity and who you are. It's this social, it's almost like a social anxiety, really. Like, they're not comfortable in being themselves around each other, blokes, that I've found. And it takes away any sort of individuality about them. And it's really frustrating, because one-on-one, when you're alone with someone and you're chatting to them, you'll find a lot more interesting, individual, exciting people in the world. But when you meet them all in a group, they're exactly the same. And I've been guilty of generalising guys, stereotyping the typical straight white bloke. I've generalised them as always talking about sex, always talking about women, physical appearances, stuff like that. But my best friends, I've noticed over time, were the ones that I just spent most time alone with. And that's, I don't know if it's me as a person, I bring out the sensitive and emotional side or whatever, but they're much more fun, and they're much more enjoyable to chat with. Like, I can't stand talking about, it's got to the point now where I can't even join in conversations where people will start rating girls and, you know, saying, would you have sex with her and that. And I'll go into detail. I'm going to make a video on sexism and stuff. But, like, it's got to the point now where I've isolated myself so much from other blokes in the same group as me, because I just think they're all going to be the same, you know? They're all going to be talking about these topics which I just find insulting, offensive and boring. But yeah, that's my one message to people watching. If you're a straight guy and you have groups of friends and stuff, my one thing would be, do not be afraid to show emotion. Do not be afraid to be yourself. And I know it's a massive cliche, be yourself around people. I don't mean show your own personality and stuff. Talk about all areas of your life. Don't join in with a conversation because you feel like people are going to accept you more for talking about that. Talk about what you find interesting. And if you're in a group of people and some of them don't find it interesting at all, then don't waste your time with them, because not only are you going to be encouraging the individuality of people, you're going to be deterring this misogyny, homophobic bullshit that goes on as well. And it's as easy as that. Just don't blurt out, because by now it'll be second nature, it'll be subconscious. You'll just blurt out the stuff that you've always been saying and the stuff that everyone else is saying. Just look inwards on yourself and actually think for a second, you know. When a guy says, oh no, she's got to be blonde, she's got to have big boobs, she's got to have a big bum, is this actually, aside of the fact that you're going to be making women insanely self-conscious and you're just objectifying them, just step to the side a second, just think, is that my preference? Girls that I've found attractive, have they always looked like that? You know, or is this me just going along with what society accepts as an attractive woman, and I don't want to be seen finding a woman attractive that everyone else doesn't, you know? I think if more people spoke their mind, this idea that companies are taking advantage of through advertisement, it wouldn't be done anymore, because less people would find that typical girl as beautiful, and people would embrace their diversity and people who they find attractive. That's just one example as well. Like, speaking about attraction, I'm sorry to generalize between straight relationships, but from my experience, it's only straight people, only straight guys actually, that even talk like that. That's why I'm excluding LGBT, LGBTQ and women, because from my experience it's just been straight guys. But anyway, I was less of a rant. That was just more of like a general query that I was having, because I tend to just sit there with my headphones on at lunch, hearing the offensive bullshit flying over my head. But today I was just, because I spent time with him and I found out things about him that I just didn't know. Like, another one's just come to the top of my head now. Like, we were talking about marriage. He said, what's your opinion on marriage? Because personally, I don't see the point in it. I don't get, isn't it just a label? That's a really broad view on something. That's a really sophisticated, out there approach to it, which I didn't expect from him at all. Obviously, when someone's offensive, you naturally assume lack of intelligence with it, don't you? But I actually had an interesting conversation with him, because I was like, I totally agree. Like, if someone has always admired the sanctity of marriage, then of course it's by all means theirs to enjoy, you know. But I think the amount of pressure there is on people to label this relationship they have, it's unnecessary. If you're going to spend the rest of your life together, spend the rest of your life together. You don't have to have a big day, and you don't have to have a ring to tell your partner that that's what you want to do. That's not an attack on people who see it as important, people who have dreamed of it since they were young. But just something to think about is, these opinions we develop, are they our own? Are they unbiased information that we've gathered and developed our own? Or is this countless enforcements saying get married and marriage is the way to create a family? But no, it was a really interesting conversation I had with him, and it was a really, without being patronising, a really mature conversation I had with him. And you don't get many 20-year-old guys who will open up and talk about that. So it was one of the better days at work. It might have been long and tiring and frustrating, but it was one of the better days, because I actually had a interesting conversation with one of them. So
right, that's gonna have to be it for today, you guys. I know I'm wearing a different top. That's because I'm a fucking idiot and I deleted the footage by accident. Don't ask me how, but I'm having to re-record this, so sorry Jezza, you're in the wash. Side note, Jeremy Corbyn, by far the least corrupt politician I've come across in my 20 short years of life. He has, aside of your politics, he has so much integrity, and it's just great to see from a politician. So, in full support of you. Yeah, anyway guys, that's going to be part 1. I'm going to do a part 2 because I know I didn't really touch on same-sex marriage that I said I was going to, but it's all about that in the second part. But I thought this would be good as like a small introduction to it because it does link back. Anyways, be sure to like and subscribe, follow me on Instagram and Twitter down below, and I hope you enjoyed the videos guys, and this has been Skaz Talks. Later.
If I was a question, would you be my answer? If I was the music, would you be the dancer? If I was the student, would you be the teacher? If I was the sinner, would you be the preacher? Would you be my...